This is The Sea Was Wet as Wet Could Be by John Shirley. Mary did not expect to survive so long after the airplane began to break up, but she did survive as she was pitched through the crack of the bulkhead as the fuselage split in the screaming air and people clung to each other in despair. She survived to fall, first spinning, but then, by some serendipity of her flailing, to fall spread-eagled like a skydiver with no parachute. She was falling toward the sea. She could breathe. She was conscious. They hadn't been so very high. They'd been only a mile from the airport, reducing elevation in preparation for landing. They were still over the sea. And the bang, the crack, the screaming of air and children. Somehow the bigness of what was happening overwhelmed fear. There was nothing left but to drink in these last few seconds alive, thinking, how alive I am. I've never been this alive, this awake. Was it always possible to be so awake? Now she saw the sea rushing up at her, waves taking on definition, and she thought she might survive if she went into a diving posture and aimed her fingers, with the hands together as if in prayer, down at the water. If she cleaved the water sharply enough, she thought she might survive. She tried to angle herself that way. She put her hands together and aimed herself straight down and thought, I might. That was her last thought before she struck, the word might. Then she struck the water. There was a flash of sensation so powerful it could not be identified as pain. There was a white light. Then she ran shooting down through the water, down and out, thinking without words that it had worked. She had somehow cleaved it so fine that she had survived, even though she'd always heard that from that high up, water would be as hard as concrete when you hit it. It was true that her body was behind her, was spread out over the top of the waves, liquid to liquid, parts already nourishing ambitious seagulls, but she had kept going. Like the time her brother dived from a pretty high diving board and he'd been wearing Dad's swimming suit, a little too big for him, and the dive, the slap of the water, had pulled it right off of him, and he was naked in the pool, and everyone laughed. It was like that, only it was her body that had been pulled off, wasn't it? But no, she could feel her body now. She could feel it quite clearly. It was vast and shifting. It lapped on the shore nearby. It supported birds on its surface, and a million fish within it. She could feel each and every one as well as bigger things moving in her depths. She felt oil slicks on her body and ships cleaving her back, and she knew that she had a new name, a name that was pronounced over and over again with waves and currents, a long name with an infinite number of syllables, and the speaking of it was never finished.